I am eight- I'm 18, almost 19 years old. I've been unschooling my entire life. And yeah, my pronouns are they, she.
Thomas, do you want to introduce yourself?
I am Thomas, and I've been unschooled my whole life. I'm 11, and my pronouns are he, him.
Awesome. So this is called being the SDE kid in a schoolish world. And before we start, I want to define schoolish because it's such a great word. And yeah, it was coined by Akila Richards, I believe. And I'm gonna read the definition on the website schoolishness.com/language. Schoolishness, conventional practices that are rooted in binaries and generally accepted by adults, but rejected by children and teenagers, either overtly or covertly. A living out someone else's goals or narrative of how and what we should be. Schoolishness models an authoritarian approach to adult-child interaction, as well as respectability ideas rooted in adults' innate superiority in knowledge. And so just like everything that has to do with like the power structures of schools and institutionalization of learning and stuff like that. And yeah, I want to like ask us questions, but yeah, so I'm wondering also if other young people want to talk about their experiences. Like I would love that, because the more experiences we have, the better. People who are just coming in, again, hi, welcome. This is the SDE Kid in a Schoolish World panel, which you know because you clicked on the breakout room. Yeah. I'm wondering, what are like your family's responses to, like, not your parents, because they probably were the ones who had the idea for you to unschool, but like are your cousins and your aunts or uncles or grandparents, like how do they feel about unschooling, would you say?
Uh, in my experience, uh, my my dad was not a big fan of unschooling. It was mainly a my mother thing, and
Yeah.
I'm autistic, so that works pretty good for my brain. But it's definitely like, well, what are you gonna do when you need to get into the real world and get a real job? And nowadays, people who are in school can't go into the real world and get a real job. So it's a lot of like, well, what are you gonna do when you get older? And now that I am older, it is just they're like, so what are you doing nowadays? I'm like, working. Like, so it's very like it was very confused. It was like, how are you going to function as an adult in society and get a job and sustain yourself?
Yeah. I face the most doubt from my grandma on my mom's side. She's a very like naive person to begin with. So like for her that I can choose what I want to do is like really nerve-wracking for her. I do take like many classes, but she's still like, ah. And I feel like I can laugh it off, which I'm happy about, but it does feel sad sometimes to not feel completely backed up by your people. And I think that could be really hard. I got an email from my grandma on my dad's side, and she was saying how she like trusts me, and she thinks that my intuition will take me to great places, and that made me feel really supported. And I wish that could be the experience for all unschoolers. But there's a lot of interesting dynamics just within the family, and then you go out into the world and you also get all these opinions, and it's like, wait, what? Like, I was yesterday, someone was heard I was homeschooled, and so then they were like, oh, is it your mom or your dad teaching you? And just those little things, it's like Thomas, what about you? Like, what's your relationship with the rest of your family and unschooling?
So, originally when my mom first had my brother Remy, my older brother, she was set on us going to school, but my dad showed her all of these great things about unschooling and it changed her mind. So now, but I do get that question a lot, like, who teaches you? And then I have to explain it. But yeah, they both are good with unschooling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering maybe about the other young people in the Zoom meeting. I see quite a few people. I'm curious, like, what do your extended families think?
My grandma used to be a preschool teacher, and I think she enjoys teaching us when we have grandma and grandpa days on Thursday and Tuesday. I think our Nana enjoys it too. Our cousins, their moms are all teachers, so they go to school.
It's a hard one.
So we only get to see them not often. But yeah, that's all I needed to say. We get like
Mm-hmm.
our grandma and grandpa's day, we get a nice. That's one of our cousins, little brother.
Let's see. In the chat, someone said, listening along with young people here, we hear a lot, how do you learn if you don't have subjects in classes? I used to get that a lot. Because people think you're doing nothing if you aren't in a specific class. And while yes, I certainly do a lot of nothing. I feel like that's a part of existing. Sometimes you need to sit, you need to stare at a wall. And a lot of school is sitting and doing nothing. And they don't understand it because technically it's your learning time. You're in there and you must be learning the entire time. But they can't understand the concept of you can do that outside of a building that is quite authoritarian and does not give them the actual, doesn't treat you like people when you are below a certain age.
Ria, is your hand raised?
It is, and I'm sorry, I'm off camera. I'm also feeding a baby. Uh, I'm not sure how to phrase this. Okay, I guess my son has friends who are like kind of partially unschooled and kind of partially schooled. And the comments about like, you're not very smart. How are you going to do anything if you're not good at math? And like they quiz him and stuff from friends
Oh,
who maybe should be more into unschooling, but they have those schoolish mentalities. And he handles it really well. But I'm wondering, like, do you all get those comments from friends and how do you handle that?
The vast majority of my friends I met via schooling. And so I don't frequently get that. I did get that when I mention it to adults specifically. It is frequently like, oh, well, what's this? And like, I even used to do that to my little brother because I was more schooled than he was. And he did not know about math like I did. And I was like, how is he gonna be able to do things in the world, I suppose. Thomas, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I have this story. So we were on, I think, this like boat or something, and this person came up to me and kept asking me math questions because I told him I was unschooled. And then after a few, I asked him one and he just laughed and walked off.
Yeah, the double standard there can be like almost comical, I would say.
That's
Because
amazing.
obviously,
Sorry.
yeah, if you are in school, no, it's all good. Zoom is a difficult method of speaking to people, I find. But there there's like that disconnect almost. Like, how could you possibly know things if you're not like learning them in a class? Uh, KP, you have your hand raised?
Hi guys. So I was just thinking about all of this and how I have so many questions about this because I am a mom of a 4.5-year-old and I'm getting a lot of questions that you guys might even get, but as a parent, they're like, from everybody around me, when is he going to go to school? Where is he going to go to school? When he goes to, he'll be able to do these things once he goes to school. And my child is just no interest. He says, maybe someday I'll want to go, but I don't want to go. And I think that we found something that's right, this SDE community for him, for me too. And I'm a former teacher. So I'm doing a lot of deschooling, right? I think that's what the phrase is, on myself right now too. But I've noticed from just reflecting on myself and then on other people's questions, there's just a lot of fear-based questions, like the ones that you guys are hearing and the ones that I hear seem like they might be, being asked out of fear, maybe some ignorance or naivety, or even just curiosity, right? Like there's lots of different reasons that people might be asking. And so that's all about those people, right? Not about us and these decisions. And so so that helps me, I think, a little bit too. And I wonder if you guys, if that helps you too. And then I had another really, really big question for you, and I've completely lost my train of thought right now. So so I just want to thank you for this first, but I will write it in the chat when it comes back to me.
It's all good. Yeah, with those questions that you mentioned, I think that the best thing to do is whatever's the best for your kid. Like that is absolutely should be your top priority. And like expressing that frequently was what my mother did in those situations. And I'm like, I'm just gonna do what's best for me. But more frequently than not, like the parent is the one who is asked because people don't take kids seriously very often. But other than that, I don't personally put much mind to it. Maybe Zoe or Thomas have more to say on that.
KP, can you say your question again, but like really short? Because I had a bit of trouble comprehending.
I don't know if I had a big question, but I did remember what I was going to ask you.
Oh,
It
okay.
was that were any of you never did any of you ever never go to school? So I'm asking it kind of backwards. So you didn't go to preschool or kindergarten or any of those. Okay. So your family has been answering those same questions and working through that since you were little too.
My entire life, yeah. I'm almost 19, and that has been what my mom has had to deal with primarily. And like, it is difficult, and unschooling itself has its hardships, but like dealing with people is a large one, I would say, because people, the fact that they might be wrong, like it kind of triggers like a fight or flight in you. So like if school's wrong, then oh my gosh, like what if my other ways of thinking are wrong? And then it kind of just crumbles and people get very defensive about it. So
Good
frequently
point.
they're like, how will you survive in the world if you don't have the things that I did? Because it's hard to get out of your own perspective.
Thank you. Very good point.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like if you question school, I think people were taught everything in school, they feel like. And so if everything they were taught is wrong, then like you're just like there's nothing you can hold on to anymore, because maybe it like people are so provoked oftentimes by the idea of like abolishing school, because like the entire way of thinking and worldview and hierarchies and government is all based upon school. And so when you remove school, everything else it will fall as well, and that intimidates people, understandably.
Yeah, change is a thing that people are so afraid of all the time. The unknown is like something that everybody is horrified by on some level, like whether you realize it or not. So when it's like, what if we changed this base level thing that everything else in society is kind of built upon? They freak out because that changes everything in a way.
Ria, wanna speak?
I have a question. I love that line of thinking that you were going down as well. So if you have more on that, please do, and ignore my question. But something you said, Ophelia, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but that sparked this for me. I know like people will ask parents about like, how did their kids learn math? How does your kid do this? What grade is your kid in? And they'll direct the question to the parent when the kid is right there, or they might direct the question to the kid when the parent is right there. And it's different for everyone, but in your experience, does it feel more powerful for your like parents or adults to stand up for you in that moment? Or does it feel more powerful if they step aside and let you stand up for yourself?
I'm a very outspoken person. I have always advocated for myself, and I feel this is something that I've said a lot with my friends. When people talk to my parents about me in front of me, it feels like they're talking about a dog. Like it feels like they are talking about a pet and not an actual human being that they're seeing in front of them. It's like, oh, does your dog know tricks? And I personally find it to be incredibly demeaning because I'm my own person. I make my own decisions. I've solo traveled since I was 15. I am out and I'm doing things, and I'm functionally an adult in that way. And folks just do not seem to understand that. Because obviously, if you are under a certain age, then your parent must be your like liaison for this type of thing.
And Thomas, Zoe, anyone else also, if you have a different thought for that question, I'd love to hear it.
Personally, I like to talk for myself. So when they direct it to my parent, it feels kind of strange, like they're like dismissing that it has anything to do about me. I don't have much to say on it, but it's just a little bit annoying when they just direct it straight to the parent without me having any say in it.
Yeah, to like kind of piggyback off of that, there's a lot of people who are like, oh, unschooling, and then they only talk to the parent about it when unschooling is primarily affecting the kid who you're raising with that. And that is like the most frustrating thing in the world, because why? I found a lot of adults, and I believe there are a couple who almost use unschooling and they're like, look at this fun little science experiment, instead of this is what people are actually genuinely going through. And they're kind of, like your ants in an ant farm almost. Like they're like, this is this fascinating thing that is like only happens in this little thing. And they just don't understand, I would say, that you are your own person who is experiencing this, and like unschooling is about the kids.
Yeah, unless it's like some like unschooling in theory, I would want to be asked any questions they have, because at the end of the day, my parents actually don't know what I'm feeling unless I tell them. And I'm like outside of the house, like from probably like 8:30 to 7 every day. And so like they know what I'm up to, because like they paid for the classes I'm taking, but like they don't like actually, they're not the ones who could tell someone else what my life is like. The only time that I'd want a question directed towards them would be if it's like logistical, like, oh, how do you fill out the quarterly report? Because yes, in New York, you have to write like the amount of hours in every subject 4 times a year that like the homeschooler is doing. It's not too fun, but like, unless it's like logistical questions, I would want to be asked about my life, not have other people speaking for me, for sure.
Sorry, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. You have a question?
No, all good. Yeah, thank you. My name is Sadi. Thank you for holding this space. It's always so awesome to hear your voices and not just be in rooms talking about you guys. I have a bunch of questions, but one is similar to Bria's question, piggybacking off of that. Like, I'm curious what ways, like what has been helpful to you in terms of adults advocating for you in your unschooling path. I'm hearing like supporting you to speak for yourself, but if there's anything that you've identified, like either your parents or like adults in your life, anything that you found helpful in terms of advocacy, that would be amazing. And then if there's time, because I don't want to take up too much space and there's interest in diving into discipline, like this is something I get a lot, like how's your son going to learn how to be disciplined if there's no structure? So two questions, answer whichever ones I guess you feel called to. Thank you.
I would say probably my biggest support is just my parents treating me like an equal, has like including me in conversations and such, and like not not treating me like I'm like a toddler in the room, like covering my ears. Like it is not like just treating me like I am a person who is also having the human experience, I suppose, has been like my greatest support. Because when people understand, like, oh, like your kid can talk to us like an adult, like that frequently opens up a lot more, I would say. Also, with discipline, everybody's got their own levels of discipline. Every single person, whether they went to school or not, and a lot of people who went to school weren't disciplined and didn't like do their work on time and such. I know that my mom, she got her a GED at 14 because she hated it. And you will find things that are worth being disciplined about in your life, one way or another, I would say.
Thank you.
Zoe, Thomas, either of you got anything, or any other young folks?
I mean, I feel like discipline is just like, what even like, it's such a like weird like concept. Like, is it like following other people's rules? Is it like adhering to a schedule? It's like, sure, being able to set your mind to something and do it, that's amazing, but that doesn't necessarily have to be discipline. I think that discipline is like overrated and a hoax. As for adults advocating for young people, yeah, I guess just like having conversations, listening to each other. Hi, Oliver's mom.
Cute.
Hi.
Sorry, I keep coming and going.
Yeah, then need to know how to make two people appear at the same time.
It's cute.
Yeah, just like, yeah, just listening, holding space, being a good friend. It like it all that that good stuff. Maybe we can do some chat questions too.
Let's see.
What kind of things have helped you all stay grounded in your path and feel good about yourself and your choices and your future in the midst of this widespread belief in the larger culture and from other friends in schools, etc., that the going to high school / college path is the only way to be successful in life? Big question. Maybe just like, no, actually, I know. Seeing grown unschoolers, seeing Bria sitting here in front of me, like, that's so cool. Like, knowing that like people have done this before me and it's great. That is like one of the best things. I don't have like any grown unschoolers that are very present in my life, but just like knowing they're there has been really helpful for me. And this summer I went to Not Back to School camp too. And just being only around people, being in your little bubble with only the unschoolers, only the grown unschoolers, only the people who wish they could have unschooled, who are like just super cool, amazing people that I think has that really grounded me. And yeah, I'm obviously not in high school because I'm unschooling. And college is something that's coming up, and it's like, should I go to college? Should I not go to college? I think I remember Bria saying, like, you're conflicted about if going to college for you was the right choice. And so, like, that's something I'm thinking about now, and I don't have the answer to.
Yeah. Staying grounded, that definitely seeing more grown unschoolers. And I'm going to be honest, I was not ever really sure of my path. I felt very disconnected, especially since my mom took a very you will learn it when you need to approach, which, while yes, in a way, when I needed to learn how to get a resume with my very limited experience, that was like pretty isolating. And having older unschoolers, like if anyone knows Leaf Schmidt, they host the talent show at Life is Good sometimes, love them to death. Like seeing them and they're doing things, and I'm like, okay. Or when I first went to Not Back to School camp in 2018, it's seeing people who have actually like experienced it, because parents of unschoolers, at least in my experience, because I am not in spaces like this frequently, it's more, I suppose, folks who are more casual about it, and like my own mother, it's they just do not understand it in the way that folks who have been in it for longer and like who have lived it, really. Because my mom and I, we were both doing it at the same time. Like, I'm her oldest, so she was figuring it out as I was figuring it out, and it can be like a really confusing thing. And as well as like high school, college path, I almost attended high school, and then it became too much. And I'm glad that I stuck with what I stuck with, because I believe I learned things that are important to me and my values. And I'm really passionate about like art, which is not very focused in schools. So it's just mainly following my passions rather than something that I know will in the end make me miserable, because nothing that I can, like, none of the professions that I can typically think of appeal to me at all, and I would just end up living a life that I dislike. Oh my gosh, wait, Leaf works at Village.
If it's the same Leaf, which I would imagine if they're around
Oh,
Portland.
yeah, they are around Portland. That is really cool. I love hearing that. I love hearing about Village and like all the conferences, because I only learned about conferences in March of 2020, which was just incredibly convenient timing for a 16-year-old me. And I know, like, I'm friends with a lot of like the like popular like unschoolers in like the younger community. I know Leaf is like a big one. There's like a couple of families, Molly Mulvaney I'm pretty close with, who I know speaks at Life is Good and such. It's just finding people who are somewhat like-minded. I suppose there is. I don't know. I mentioned some unschoolers like Roya Dido, and people are like, oh yeah, no, I know her. And I'm like, how do you all know the same person? Because it's very tight-knit while also like being all over the place, I suppose. Let's see. Do you all feel like you know yourselves better, interests, passions, drives, possible future paths as a result of unschooling more than your formerly schooled counterparts? Or than your formerly schooled counterparts? Okay.
I would say no. I would say I'm just as lost and figuring everything out as any other person is. Maybe I've tried more things because I'm like unschooled, but that doesn't like no, I'm just maybe people think of me as more like distinct, but no, I feel just as just as ambiguous and ever changing as anybody else.
Mhm. I would say even since with school, it's like very like you pick your life path and you stick with it almost, because you have to like dedicate yourself to like a degree or like extracurriculars in that way. So I just do things. I don't know what's happening up there. That's not my issue right now. I frequently would talk about this at not back to school camp. I would just show up and they'd be like, "Oh, like you're one of the older unschoolers," and I'm like, "Don't ask me anything. I don't know." I'm like, just hanging out.
How about you, Thomas?
The same.
Yeah. I would say it's given me more opportunities to do things for sure. Like I'm in the process of writing a book that will be published by August because I posted I posted about it and now I've got like 40 people holding me accountable and I do not have a choice. Like it's very just I throw myself out there and I see what sticks. And that's more accepted in those groups.
When you are asked, how do you learn? How do you answer that question? Also, how do you feel just having to answer that in the first place? Good one.
I don't really mind answering it. I'm neutral on that, but I usually answer it by just saying living.
Yeah, I'm very similar. I kind of at this point I get a little annoyed because I don't go up to
Gets
people who
old.
went to school. Yeah, no, it gets old. I'm like I've been asked this question so many times and I'm just like I'm just here. I'm just hanging out, like similar to Thomas. Like I'm just existing and then you learn things by existing. Like there a lot of things like you can't do anything without like experiencing in some level that.
I do take a lot of classes and like I do a lot of like scheduled regular stuff. And so I'll say like I take a lot of classes, but that's not like where my learning ends. And that like learning is like happening all the time. When I go to the park, when I go to a museum, when I strum my guitar, when I sleep, it's like all learning.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also in your hobbies, like you are learning things. Like it's just the value that society places on it.
Right. It's like it's not making money gonna make you a more, it's not, you're not gonna contribute to the economy by learning certain things. So they're like considered less serious.
Yeah, it's like a lot of the creatives, even in
Obvious.
like schoolish, like they do not. They're like art. What's art going to amount to unless you're making profit off of it? And I'm like, it brings me joy, and like that's frequently lost. I find. Like, why would you ever do something for your own enjoyment when you have to be making money?
Yeah. Yeah, that's also one thing about unschooling, that it's celebrating all types of learning. that school doesn't necessarily celebrate, I think.
Mhm.
What is your hope for the future as it relates to youth liberation? Whoa. Okay. My hope is the Youth Liberation Now zine. That is so cool, and getting the message out to a lot more people. Yes. And also, I think the homeschooling rate has increased a lot, and during the pandemic, people were like started questioning school, and so I think, yeah, we're getting places eventually. Because once you start homeschooling, it's like really easy to just like be less and less formal in your homeschooling, since homeschooling is already flexible.
Mhm. Yeah, I hope that people take children more seriously, I suppose, like youth. I want people to, just because I have not been on this earth for as long as many folks, does not mean that I do not have opinions that need like to hold weight and like have value. And that is a thing, especially with youth liberation, kids having like conversations with their parents, because, well, yes, parents are an authority figure in a way, like it is your job to keep your kids safe. It's not your job to be a dictator for your kid. And that is like very difficult for some folks. And like there's untraining in everybody, but like hopefully there is going to be able to be more like equal level conversations between youth and adults.
I just realized that the question was, what is your hope, not what gives you hope. So now I'm going to say the voting age is lowered. Adults are not allowed to beat their freaking kids because that is abusive and should be illegal, obviously. Learning becoming, all forms of learning becoming equally respected and free and public to everybody and optional, and like low commitment, so that you could like just like pick and choose whatever you want to do. Community centers like are just so cool, and just having places where people learn from each other in a mutual and non-hierarchical way. Having lots of different options for ways to learn, and like just like making society more age integrated. Yeah.
Also, to piggyback a little bit, more choices for the kid rather than like the adult about the kid, like your own autonomy as a person. Like yes, when you are younger and you do not like understand, like you have to get a cavity filled, I suppose, but like being able to like decide like medical things as a disabled person, that would have been very helpful in my younger years before any of that. Yeah, Thomas?
I actually have this story. You saying getting a cavity filled remind me of it. So I was at our dentist and I was getting, I believe, a cavity fixed. And I didn't want so they normally give you anesthesia, right? And I said I didn't want it, and I kept saying it, and she just would not do it without. So we had to go to a different dentist to do it.
Yeah, there's a level of people will be like, oh no, you are a kid, so your pain tolerance must be nothing, and like also you wouldn't be able to handle this because like you're just young. Like there's a lot of that, and that is That is incredibly frustrating. Sitch. I've been in similar comments. Oh, Oliver?
So you saying the thing uh about the dentists like made me think that like in young people getting cavities filled and like it made me like I feel like grown-ups think a lot of the time like that they need to force young people to do things that are good for them instead of explaining to them why it's good. Like instead of saying like instead of saying eating a lot of sugar can be harmful to you and it might make you feel sick and it might be uncomfortable and you might need to get cavities filled, which is also really uncomfortable. They're just like, nope, no sugar. Sorry, that's your limit for the, or yeah. And like, instead of explaining why things are, they just like make the rules because they think that young people aren't smart enough to understand the reasoning and figure it out for themselves.
Yeah, like how would you possibly know that I'm a very like, oh, why do I do this? Like I always used to ask those questions, especially when I was younger, and I still ask them now, but now like I can find my own resources. But like when I would ask my parents, I'd be like, why can't I do this? And it was because I said so. And that's not learning. Yeah, Zoe. I feel that it's exhausting because just because it's common sense to you does not mean that it's common sense to like anybody else. Someone who has not learned this just doesn't understand. Like I know folks who are like, why do I need to brush my teeth? Like when they were younger and they were never explained it. It was just like, because you do. That's what everyone does. And human beings are incredibly like curious creatures and like apprehensive and like you want to know things. And why would you do something if you don't know about it? I suppose. Zoe or Thomas, do either of y'all have anything to say on that? So I see we got a hand raised here.
No, Alicia, yeah. You wanna talk?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm Alicia. Yeah, I had a question for you guys. I love what you guys are all saying. I've been very passionate about youth rights since I was like 15 or 16 years old when I discovered unschooling. And although I never became an unschooler, I was formally schooled the whole time. Have been so passionate about it since, and youth rights, youth liberation, etc. And I'm curious from you all if so I'm way older now. I'm 29, and I'm curious, and like I just feel like nobody knew back then what unschooling was, and everybody thought it was such a radical and crazy and unthinkable thing in my life. But I noticed more and more of the years, like more and more people are recognizing that word, and more and more people are like hearing about this concept. In you guys's experience, has this become like a mainstream thing, or and do a lot of people know what you mean right away when you say unschooling or self-directed education or anything like that? Or is it still fairly unknown in you guys's experience?
Still fairly unknown. I usually say it's like unschooling, or it's like homeschooling, but not. And then I let them figure it out. Yeah, Thomas?
So, personally, I find the fact that like jobs and everything have changed, yet school hasn't in over 100 years. And I wanted to know how you guys feel about that.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, unschooling, I mean, schooling is just way behind the times. It's so unflexible and rigid and like inhumane, inefficient, just like, yeah.
It's more focused on pumping out workers than cultivating learning. And I mean, everything, especially in America, is about pushing like it's a capitalist society, so we gotta like make more workers so that like the economy can keep going. And so it's not really focused on like what learning is all about. And that is like frustrating for me because I like the concept of school, but I do not believe that I would do well there. Oh, KP?
Hi again. So I have been learning about the self-directed, so collaboratives. I think some of them are called like ALCs, agile learning collaboratives, and I'm trying to find out as much as possible about them. I'm hoping that I can become involved and that my child can. And I'm wondering if any of you have ever done like that, or if that's very new. If you've heard of them, have you been a part of them, like as a member or a facilitator? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I was a member of Bluebridge School, which is an ALC, and it's pretty good. It's over time it does get boring, but it's still fun.
What were you with another, like other people of all ages? And what did you do together? Can you give me an example or two?
Yeah, well, mostly they had like coloring stuff, and outside at only the one that I went to. I don't know if other ones have this, but they had like a patio and some like mostly for the younger kids, they had like tricycles. But pretty much there was this computer room where if you brought a computer, or they have some like Google computers. So pretty much it's just pretty much whatever you decide on. People can do different things.
Got
Some
it.
people just yeah.
And then when you got bored, you said at some point it got boring. Did you just talk to your family about it and just decide that it wasn't working for you?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you for telling me a little bit about it.
I live in Brooklyn, New York, and the first ALC is up in Harlem in Manhattan. I haven't been there, but I've talked to multiple people who have been there. And then I think they got like a little too old for the age range. Yeah, I actually don't know much about it, so I'm not going to keep talking. But all the facilitators I've met from Agile Learning Center NYC are very nice and cool people. I love that saying, Sadi. When you see one ALC, you've seen it, one ALC.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of those. That's like a completely foreign concept to me, but also like while I'm unschooled, we were not really in unschooling spaces ever. I just kind of existed. And then when I found Not Back to School Camp was when I started talking to fellow unschoolers, and that's how I know every single person I know today. Not a single one of my friends is not somehow from that.
Okay, let's do some more chat questions, maybe.
Mhm.
Um,
Are there any more hiding in there?
what does it feel like when everyone else you hang out with has more limited hours based around the school day, schoolwork, and also homework?
Mm.
Hmm.
I don't really experience this because I work and my friends work because that's just where I'm at in my life. So I'm like, yeah, man, like it's time to go. I remember when I was younger, though, it would be like a bit more frustrating because I would not understand. But now that I like manage my time differently, you just kind of like experience it and figure it out as you go along. I wouldn't say it's terribly frustrating.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who are in school, and it'll be like, oh, I have to go because I have homework, or I'm part of Fridays for Future, a climate organization, a youth climate organization, and a lot of those people will complain about homework and be like, oh, I got so little sleep and I have all these assignments due. And I'm so grateful that I cannot relate to them. And for me, it's really like, wow, I wish they did not have to deal with that. It feels just so like useless, and it's so stupid. Bria, I think, made like really good like poem or short story thing on this topic. And I don't remember what it's called, but it touches exactly upon this, that like you can only you can only see your friends after 3, and like your friends are in box and you're outside of the box. You can go everywhere here, but you can't go inside where your friends are. And so like, how free are you really when your friends aren't free? Yeah. Thomas, did you want to say something about the question?
Yeah, I don't know. It's also unique for me probably because I have all of my friends are online. So either way, my partner of about a year and a half now lives in Alaska and we both work. So I've always kind of had like that sort of time management in my life with that. And it just makes sense. Like everybody has their own schedule in the day, whether it be like I have to go eat dinner with my family or like I'm gonna go attend this class.
Yeah, one thing that I think could change is the limit on doing work for like money. I think it's strange that there's such a high age limit on it. And I think, I mean, obviously it shouldn't be like you can work at like 4 years old, right? But I feel like if the kid feels like they're ready, they should be able to.
It's also like having income is really like it's how everything works in this world. So having your own money in order to pay for things that you could possibly want, like especially at a young age, that was a source of a lot of frustration for me. as well, like that I wanted to do things, but I did not have funds, or I wanted a thing, but I did not have like the capability of doing that.
Yeah, and I believe that it could also teach people a lot about getting income and working for, and like how currency works and stuff at a younger age if they could actually work and get it by themselves.
Mhm. Yeah, that specifically was something that was insane to me because I didn't know anything about working or about how money worked or nothing. I was never taught any of it until I got a job and I was like, oh, okay, we're gonna figure this out head on. Like that's frequently how I've learned things, is just diving in head first. And in ways it can be good. I also feel like there should be more resources in that way to like figure that out. Let's see. Hoop Sangonier family? You got a question?
I actually don't have a question. I'm loving
yeah.
all the conversation. I was wondering if it would be okay. My son has a little bit of a desire to share his experience as an unschooler. But he said he would do it if I did it first. So I wanted to let y'all know that we did start a self-directed center. It kind of devolved into a now it's just a cooperative, and we meet infrequently. We meet like monthly, but before it was like an everyday center school space that parents would drop their kids off at. And I guess I'll just say for me as the adult in the space, I was one of the facilitators. It was really challenging to balance what felt like ended up being a caretaking role, and then also like being a facilitator, partly because we were just like understaffed and it was just challenging, and there were some really beautiful moments, but it was also it was really way more than like I could handle as a facilitator, and we just didn't have enough adult space. It felt too much
for you, like running. Oh my God, that sounds like so much work.
It really was, and it took me a long time to realize it because I wanted it so much. And we are kind of the only self-directed family that we know in the area. So we live in a sort of small town, and so it's been really great for my kids to be able to be part of this workshop and see like how other people are doing what we're doing, and it's been very validating for them. So that's all I want to say. I want to see if my son wants to offer any. His name is Perseus. He likes to go by Percy. Percy, can you offer him, or? This is your chance. Did you change your mind?
Okay.
He's feeling shy, but I want to let you guys know that it's
It
really
happens.
encouraging for him and very inspirational. And thank you for giving us some space to share our story.
Yeah, of course. I think it's important to like see and talk about it frequently, because I didn't have any unschooler friends really growing up for like a chunk. Like until I like found unschoolers spaces, like a very explicit like NBTSC and like Life is Good. I didn't know like I had school friends or like traditional homeschooler friends, and it's very different. Thomas?
What is Life is Good? I'm sorry, I don't know what that is.
Life is Good is a conference where speeches like this are held, but it's in person at a hotel in Portland. Or not Portland, Vancouver, Washington. And like it's speeches, it's a way that like a bunch of unschoolers hang out with their friends, like who live in other places. It's just like a big meetup that happens over the course of a weekend. And it'll be happening this May, not quite sure when, but it's something that a lot of my friends went to growing up. They're like, oh yeah, no, here's where we all met, or like at HSC, which is I don't know if it stands for like homeschooling conference? I think it does. But that is in California, and like stuff like that I hear about. And I'm like, wow, like there was so much resource there.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I got about 20 minutes left. Does anyone else like any questions, anything at all? I'm searching through the chat.
Oh yeah, Josiah asked how we learn reading and math. I'll say I went to public school, a conventional school for first grade, and I think I learned to read there, but like after that, I guess I just got better on my own because who would have thought that practicing reading makes you better at it? OMG, what? For math, I think a lot of like math came to me just like naturally. Like I came up with the concept of division in my head because I was like, wait, if I want to make a dollhouse and if I want the table and the fork to be like small but like the right size and proportion to each other, I can't just like take the length of the table and subtract 3 inches and then take the fork and subtract 3 inches from the length of that. That would be like, it would not work at all. So then I would have to take a piece of paper and the length of the table and fold it in half until it's the size of the dollhouse table I want, and do the same for the fork. So like a lot of math just like makes sense, and to a lot of people would probably come on their own if they weren't like forced to learn it. And some math is not intuitive at all. So right now I take a math, like a one-on-one math lesson that the Department of Education pays for because I have ADHD. And they like give you a certain amount of hours that you have a right to like tutoring and stuff. But I don't use all of it. And I have a really sweet teacher. My sister, she learned to read like probably when she was like 11, and she's dyslexic, and it was like going really slowly, and the lessons were miserable, and like it was like not great at all. And she wasn't like that good at reading, but then she started being online a lot more and like playing Roblox and like talking with friends on her phone, and then like she got like instantly better at reading in like no time at all. And like I know a lot of people who learn to read from like Calvin and Hobbes comic books or Minecraft. Those two especially are like a lot of
powerhouses
to read. Yeah, Calvin and Hobbes and Minecraft.
Yeah. My mom got me a reading program when I was about 5 years old, and I picked it up nearly immediately. I'm quick with stuff like that. I love reading, and then I would just read and read and read. I used to go and finish a book a day, sometimes 3. It was like, yeah, no, I was on it. I was really enthusiastic about that. And at a certain point, I lost all interest. But like, it is just, I learned it when it was interesting to me. Like, I don't remember the last time I finished a book. I'm gonna be entirely honest. Like, that's not a part of my life right now. But my little brother, he didn't learn to read until, I'm not quite sure when. It was definitely double digits, but he learned to read because he wanted to know how to code video games. And that is a very unschooler thing, I feel. You are just trying to figure it out. Like, You're like, oh, now that this applies to me in my life, I'm going to learn math or reading. Yeah, Thomas?
So I'm pretty sure I started reading when I was about I don't know, 4 or 5. I don't quite remember.
Mhm.
You were 2 and
Somewhere.
a half when you started reading.
Oh, I was 2.5
Mhm.
when I started, apparently. Yeah. But I loved learning things. So I also learned how to ride a bike when I was 4.
Mhm.
And yeah, the way I learned was I would start reading the like when we drove, I would read the signs of the buildings, and then over time I would recognize more and more words. So
Mhm.
Curious to see how other people who are not necessarily designated panelists learn to read too.
Mhm. Thomas, you got something else?
So another thing is for my sister, the way she learned to read was, so me and my brother learned through obviously the signs and Minecraft. And then my sister learned almost entirely from Roblox games and chatting through Roblox.
Mhm.
Also, like YouTube as well for making lists for like projects and stuff. Yeah. But none of us have taken a reading lesson ever.
Mhm. Yeah, I know that's like a big almost fear with a lot of unschooling parents, like homeschooling parents, because like your kid is supposed to know at a certain age. And like that can be like a major source of fear because you're like, am I doing this wrong as a parent? And like everybody does their own things at their own time. And everyone will learn eventually and it'll all be okay. I think is like the most important thing to remember. Oh, looks like we got Hoops and Go Near family. Hi.
You're unmuted. You gonna tell them who you are? You gotta talk, baby. Lisa, do you want to tell them? Nobody wants to tell them?
They did. So my little brother, he actually learned to read from. Okay.
You're unmuted. You have everybody's attention. Why?
Did that.
Well, this is your opportunity. You can take
You
it
weren't
if you
saying
want.
anything, really.
You want to tell them how you?
Okay, well, go ahead and tell them that never mind. Let somebody else.
No, all right, do it.
Do you want to talk to?
No, okay, no, you have to make a choice. There's no like this.
If you feel shy, you could also turn your camera off and just speak with your voice.
It's a lot to speak to this many people. I totally get it.
It's okay. You
They
don't have to do
they
it.
can hear you. Okay, all you have to do is talk.
No pressure.
You want to share how you learned how to read?
You want Uncle to share it for you? We're trying to read from video games. Well, I don't basically know how I learned how to read. Well, so he learned how to read because we would read him Undertale and we would just read him. Me and my brother, we already knew how to read from our father and our mother because they made an effort to teach us how to read. But me and my brother, he would watch us play games and he would want us to read out loud for him. So he would learn how to read from us. We just read out loud to him.
Mm-hmm.
So we read games and then he eventually just learned how to say it himself, and it's just it didn't. He just learned on his own.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about magic person.
Thanks for letting us share.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Mm. Yeah, Thomas?
So, I definitely do not think mine has, but do you guys think your like socialing skills and social life has been impaired because of unschooling and not going to school with a bunch of kids?
Mine did in the beginning, definitely. That was mainly because I did not have much of a community. Because I have autism and people would not understand my way of existing. And then I would get played off as a weird kid and then not really socialize. And it took effort from me to learn that and like find my own community where I could like get that. And unschooling, if done without a community, can be an incredibly isolating thing because school is a community. And frequently I find that sadly there are people who are unschooling and they do not have a community and they're not making the effort to get their kids that community. And that is a large issue and with a lot of young people whose parents I feel like do not understand, because frequently unschooling spaces are for adults to talk to other adults about like this cool thing that they're doing with their kids, and it's not actually centered around the kids and like what they need. And that is a source of a lot of frustration in unschooling, at least with me. I definitely have a lot of issues with the way that unschooling is done. And I find that it is frequently focused on more positives than what can be done like negatively, which doesn't help anything if we only focus on the positives or if we only focus on the negatives. There are pros and cons to everything. And it gets frustrating. Oh, 10 minutes left.
Anyone else want to answer that question?
I need a lot of social stimulation. And so I've found ways to get it. Sometimes I'm really overwhelmed and just want to crawl back into a hole or something like that. But I think my social skills are probably average. Maybe like I don't follow social norms as much because I'm not like bullied because sometimes I wear toe socks and sandals with chickens on them around the city. And so maybe like people maybe think I'm a little weird, but like my talking to people skills are, I think, about the same. I also went to a very loud and chaotic free school for 5 years. And I go to a homeschool center called Brooklyn Apple, which is also very loud and chaotic. And I go to weekly Fridays for Future protests, which are also pretty loud and chaotic. And so I also go to flying squads, which can be pretty loud and chaotic. So I think I'm in just as many and maybe more diverse social situations actually than people who are in school are. Like, I'm at protests. I do a flower internship once a week, and I'm only talking with like these 4 adults, these like 4 millennials, while I'm like shaving the leaves off of flowers. And so like I think I have a lot more diverse social interactions, which could make me give me more stronger social skills actually than a lot of people. And I actually owe this all to public transportation, because I could not get to any of these places if it weren't for my trusty subway. And I think unschooling in a city is so great, because there's so many opportunities in a city, and that make unschooling a lot less isolating, I think. Even though even in a city surrounded by people, all the kids are in school, and so it can still be isolating and stuff if you don't make a big effort to create that community. But yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. I do think being unschooled has brought me to more social opportunities. I mean, I can't really do loud, obnoxious spaces, but I definitely think I've had more opportunities because of unschooling. I didn't think about that at first.
Same here. My life would be entirely different. I would not be pursuing as many creative things, I don't believe. And everything in my life is based off of creativity. Like, it is one of my greatest passions. I love learning. And if I was in school, I don't believe that would have been as high of a priority on my list.
Ophelia, people were wondering about your book.
My book, it's a collection of poetry with illustrations done also by me. I'm bookbinding it. It's just about my experience as a person and existing, and I started it in January, and it's gonna be done by August. I'm not proper publishing it. I'm just like gonna have a physical thing that I can hold in my hands and be like, I did the thing. Because I'm going to be culminating or graduating at not back to school camp this year, which is like the biggest driving force of every single thing in my life. And yeah. Oh wait, we got a question. Nicholas J.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of speak on the social life of like an unschooler. I in my neighborhood, I didn't really have a lot of people that I can just, go out and go talk to. So it did feel like I wasn't getting enough like social time with people, but I eventually started going out to different like teen meetups and events and getting to know more and more people, which really changed a lot on my social part of my life, which I think I definitely say that's an ideal thing to do. Just go out and meet people.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I started loving unschooling when I had people. Like, everything is about community. At least for me personally.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
No problem.
Yeah, I believe that is like the thing about unschooling. Since you are doing this thing that is so different, it is really helpful to have people who understand. and know and like are there with you while you're experiencing all of these new things. Like it's just as important for like the kids as the parents. It is wild how much my life changed once I've figured that out. Oh, we got Hoops and Gonier family again. Y'all are muted in case you didn't know.
Well, I just wanted to say I was always unsure. Like I always thought I just wasn't learning enough. And this has just been really helpful. Giving me a lot more certainty. I kind of just felt like I was drifting away from the unschooling community because our school, we lost our building and it was like, but it's just really nice to see people like promoting it. So I just wanted to say thank you. And yeah, I just appreciate you doing this.
I am glad to be here. That's really sweet. All right, let's see. Bria?
Yeah, I was just curious if you're going to share your book in like with the public in any way, or if there's a way we can follow when you publish it.
Actually publishing it is beyond that's beyond me right now, but I should have like some link to like a digital version of it at some point on my Instagram, which I can really quick pop in chat for folks.
Thank you.
And if anyone wants to like see any of like the work in progress, I've been sharing it in the Not Back to School Camp server with I know Zoe has seen a couple little instances of it. Yeah, I think that like unschooling has definitely benefited me in those creative pursuits, because I would not be able to do that if I was in proper school right now and working. Existing is hard enough. Let's see.
Thank you for coming, and you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing. Yeah, you have 1 minute. Are you good? Should I
Thank
stop the
you
recording?
for sharing.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I feel like this has been a really valuable conversation.